Hello, hello. Welcome back again for a new episode. So, you know something? A lot of people out there want to know. What should you or shouldn't you say to a Japanese woman? What are some of the deal breakers if you actually want to find a Japanese girlfriend? I mean, like I've said before, back in the old days, it wasn't as complicated. But nowadays, you have to have a little bit of game. You can't just walk out there and all of a sudden say anything stupid or dumb and then have them fall in love with you. That wasn't always the case. But honestly, if you're looking for a Japanese lady, if you want to find love in Japan, I mean, Japanese call it lavu. I mean, if you want that lavu, then there's certain things that might disqualify you if you don't know what to say and how to say it. I'm not telling you to go out there and lie. I'm just saying there's certain things that the Japanese ladies don't like. And even back when I first got here, they didn't like it. Now, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to generalize. What I mean by generalize, if you start saying that you don't like Japanese food, automatically that sets the tone. I mean, remember, Japanese people are very clannish. So, one or two things that you dislike about the country, the people, the food, the cars, the city, might automatically make them think that, hold on a second, this guy doesn't like Japan. So you can't criticize anything about Japan on the first date. That will most certainly not help you get into the location that you want to get into. So I would avoid it. Another thing you don't want to tell Japanese women is that you definitely don't want to say that you're looking for a Japanese girlfriend. I mean, you don't want to talk like that. I mean, as soon as you say that, then automatically, Japanese people have, again, I'm generalizing to a certain degree, but I do believe this. There is like a victim mentality over here. So, if they think that you are looking for a Japanese woman, that means that, hold on a second, that means that you have some ulterior motives. So the word Japan shouldn't really come out of your mouth when you're trying to court a Japanese lady. I mean, if it does, it's got to be very, very positive. Like, you like this, you like that. Again, back in the old days, you would have said, like, I like blue, and they would have been, like, busting out laughing. Nowadays, it's like, it's very cautious. I'm not going to say that that's the way it is everywhere, but that's definitely the feeling I get. Japanese people, Japanese ladies nowadays are more sophisticated as to how to interact with foreigners. So, a couple things that Japanese women do not like. Okay? They don't like being perceived as submissive. Now, I know I'm guilty of it. When I first got here, I believed that all Japanese women were submissive. All you got to do is say jump, and all of a sudden they like jump 10 feet. That's not true. Some of them are submissive. And you might find one or two of those. But I would say nowadays, that's not really like a positive thing for them to admit to. That's not really a positive thing for them to I mean, I don't think that they're really that submissive. I mean, even the ones that are, if they don't like what you tell them to do, if they don't like what you're suggesting, they might not outright tell you that they don't like it, but they might work behind the scenes to disrupt it. So if you go out there and you tell a Japanese woman, you know something, I'm looking for a submissive lady, and I heard that Japan is the land of submission. More than likely, you're going to get rejected. And even if you do score, it's highly unlikely that she's going to be submissive for the duration of your relationship. But she might pretend to. I mean, I was at the airport a day or two ago, and not sure if you can hear me. I was at the airport a day or two ago, and there was this foreign guy married to had to let that truck go by. There was a foreign guy. He was married to a Japanese woman. And I think they had like 2 or 3 kids. Now, we were trying to get some food. I was trying to get some food, and he was actually directly in front of me. And him and his wife were directly in front of me. And I was kind of shocked at their interaction. It was like he was asking her if he could feed his kids, I mean their kids, what their kids wanted. Oh, is it okay if they have this? Is it okay if they have that? And she was like, no, they can't have that. What about this? I mean, she had him under control. So I was like, he was totally under control. So, I mean, again, I can't say that happens all the time, but most certainly there are some guys out there that are submitting in the way that old school Japanese ladies used to submit. Now, another thing Japanese ladies just do not like is they don't like to hear that you've had other Japanese girlfriends. They want to be the first. Most of them. Not all of them. I'm not saying that you're never going to find a Japanese lady that's going to not give a damn about that, but most likely they like to be the first to have mated with you. Not sure that sounded right. But you find a lot of ladies like that out here. You're also going to find women that do not like the fact that you have been married. That was true back then, and it's also true now. So if you've been married once and you somehow mention that before you have anything going on, that could be a deal breaker for a lot of ladies over here. I mean, Japan's got a 30% divorce rate. So it's not extremely low. But the fact that you have been divorced is a deal breaker for a lot of Japanese ladies. Not everyone. but a lot. I mean, the older they get, the less and less that becomes a factor. I mean, if they're like 30 and they can't get married and they're dying to get married, they might not care if you've been divorced. But if they're young and they think that they've got a chance to meet somebody that hasn't gone through that kind of turmoil, then they will most certainly look you over. So, being divorced is definitely not in your favor, no matter whose fault it was. Now imagine if you got a kid, or 2, or 3 on top of that. You are at a serious disadvantage, especially if she's never been divorced, and especially if she's got to go explain that to her parents that she gets along with. That could be devastating to your relationship, even if you've had a relationship for a while. Now, the parents, again, are not going to be confronting you. All these things are going to be going on behind the scenes. She might not even be telling you. She might tell you. Now, another one that I've talked about before that you probably know is that a lot of the ladies over here don't like it if you've been here too long. If you've been here more than 5 or 10 and all of a sudden you are not married or still haven't gotten married, you don't have a girlfriend, they're suspect. They're like, hold on a second, wait a minute. I mean, think about it. If you were back in your own country and you're like, yeah, you've been there for 10 years and you're not married, people wouldn't think about it. People would not care. But over here, the ladies care. Now, I've also mentioned this before. The better your Japanese is, the less and less your chances are. That doesn't mean it's impossible. I mean, I was in Tokyo recently, and I went into a bar. I was surprised at how many foreigners are in Tokyo. I mean, there was I was in Shinjuku. I went into a bar, and all the clientele was foreign. It was like one Japanese. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Man, Japan has changed. So, when I went into this place, the hostess that was there, I'm not so sure that she was a hostess, but it looked like a hostess bar. But it didn't really, it was kind of like a bar, but it wasn't like a hostess bar, but it, kind of looked like one. The only reason I went in there was because there were a couple foreigners in there already. It was on the ground floor, and I thought, okay, well, hey, let me just have a look. I haven't seen anything like that in Osaka. So as soon as I went in there, of course, my Japanese was better than all the other foreigners. It seems like they had just gotten there, or I don't know, or they hadn't been there that long. And Mama-san looked at me as if like, damn, why do you speak such good Japanese? It was good for communication, but she wasn't comfortable with it. She was like, no, this should not be happening. You shouldn't be speaking our language. Of course she didn't say that. But having been in Japan for a very long time, I understand how Japanese people beat around the bush. So I understood perfectly well what she meant. So definitely, if you want a Japanese lady and you're speaking Japanese, maybe I would hold off on those skills. I mean, usually you could tell if they're comfortable with it or they're not comfortable with it. But I'd say English is the way to go if you're a foreigner. Because a lot of Japanese ladies don't appreciate it. They don't look at it as if like, oh, I like your culture. I'm trying to learn about you and your culture. That's not the way they look at it. A lot of them. I'm not saying every single person. So, it's tough. I mean, there's so many do's and don'ts. It gets complicated. But it most certainly can be done. Now, another thing you don't want is you don't want to act like you know a lot about Japanese women or Japanese culture or lecture them about Japan. Oh, Japan is like this, Japan is like that. You want them to tell you everything. You might know, you might understand, but remember, they're the expert. And you just have to say, oh, really? I didn't know that. Now, we might know that sometimes you look at Japanese people and they look very, very shy. You don't want to ask questions to make people feel uncomfortable, like, hey, why are you shy? They might not be shy. They might be shy with you. So, you want to avoid these topics. I recommend that you talk about where you came from. You talk about the things that you like to do. Now, half the time that'll work. I mean, in the past, you could have said silly stuff, stupid things. You could have just like yawned, and all of a sudden they'd fall in love. Can't do that anymore. Too many foreigners coming in. So it's like, back in the old days, they didn't feel special, but now they feel special because everybody's coming here for vacation. So, most certainly, when you're talking about dating a Japanese lady, you got to be extremely careful as to how you approach it. You never want to make it seem like you only like Japanese women. You want a Japanese girlfriend. No, you want a girlfriend. It's probably best that you didn't have other Japanese girlfriends. Makes them feel special. And in terms of submissiveness, you want to stay away from that subject. Now, the big deal breakers most of the time is divorce, reputation. If you're hanging out at a bar often, you know people there. People there know you. She knows people there. People there know her. And she knows that. And all of a sudden, one day, you guys meet up. Now, usually that doesn't work, because if you just have acquaintances at that place, all they have to say is they've seen you talk to other women. And that automatically could just spoil everything. It could ruin your whole game right there. And you'll notice it, because what happens is you'll have like a really, really positive interaction with her at the beginning, where everything is going smooth. You and her are getting along. You're having a wonderful time. She gives you her contacts. You give her your contacts. And you agree to meet again. But then again, like I said, the place where you're going at, people have seen you. But you haven't seen each other. And all of a sudden, those people that have seen you together see her one night without you, and all of a sudden they get to talking about you. Now, in Japan, they don't have to say you killed anybody. They don't have to say that you got arrested. All they got to do is say a couple of corny things like, well, yeah, he's always talking to the ladies. That's it. That's all she wanted to hear. No, I mean, that's all she didn't want to hear. And then all of a sudden your game is like screwed up, messed up, effed up. So, Japanese ladies don't like to hear rumors about you, regardless of how silly, small, insignificant, or even outright false. They don't want to hear it. And that'll screw you up, because all of a sudden she pairs up with you, and then all of a sudden she's the girl that's going out with the guy that's got a lot of ladies, or the guy, you know, et cetera, even though it's not true. Remember, one thing that Japanese women don't like is they're sitting over there talking to you, and then a Japanese person walks by them and looks at them like, what are you doing? You would be amazed at how effective that is in like destroying your game. She gets like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 looks like that. It's game over. So they don't like that, especially at the beginning. If you and her haven't, let's say, what's the word I'm looking for? If you and her haven't matched up in an intimate way yet. Some girls are just mentally not tough enough to deal with that. So you got to be careful, because there are a lot of things that can go wrong if you don't watch for certain things. And those are one of the things that you got to watch out for. So, anyway, if you're looking for love in Japan, couple things that might not enhance your chances from Chase the Traveler.